All right, guys, we are back. Tonight, we are honored to have the lovely Sarah Williamson out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Sarah's been a good friend of mine for a few years now. Had the privilege of working side by side with her for the last couple years, which has been awesome. Developed an awesome friendship through that. And sad to say that recently, very recently, sad and happy at the same time. Obviously, very happy for Sarah, but she just recently moved on to a new company, so crushing it, moving on to bigger and better things, and really killing it out in Philly. So, Sarah, nice to have you on tonight. Obviously, we still keep in touch quite a bit, but it's really good to catch up with you. And how's your Christmas? Let's start off with that. Did you have a good holiday season?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm honored. But yeah, I actually had a great holiday. It was my family's kind of all over, so I
Nice.
have family in Harrisburg, Maryland. So did a lot of driving around over the holiday break. But it was nice to see all my family, so that was awesome.
Yep. And are you officially at this point? I remember last time we were talking about how you were sort of traveled out, where you're because Sarah, guys, is a huge traveler. We're going to get in that big time tonight, because I just want tips from you on kind of favorite places and all the rest of it. But like, are you still traveled out where you're like, are you still just have that bug almost every day you wake up and you're like, what's the best place I could go to on the bucket list? Or do you feel a little traveled out at this point?
So I don't think I could ever be traveled out. I think if I could travel for a living, I would. And maybe one day I will. We'll see. So yeah, I mean, anytime anyone comes to me with a trip or an idea, I'm like, let's if I haven't been, especially, I'm like, let's do it, let's go.
Yeah.
Um, so no, I went to definitely a lot of places last year and last couple years. So last year was a big one. I did I'm trying to think at the beginning. I did a couple like smaller trips, so
She can't
Chicago,
even can't even remember it. So many folks.
Chicago, Florida. I feel like there's a couple others in there. New Orleans. Those were like smaller ones. And then I did Bali. That was a big one. So that was like a 2.5 week trip, which was awesome. I need to go back. And that's a story we can share if we want to, of why I need to go back and not I want to go back. So Bali was awesome. And then I did a little European trip. So I did London, Barcelona, and Portugal, which I was actually working at the time. So it was lucky enough that I could work remotely during that trip. But that was awesome as well.
Yeah. So, which was the one that you actually weren't working? Was that Bali that you had the whole
Bali
time
was
you
the
were?
one, yeah, Bali was the one that I saved all my PTO days, even though we had unlimited PTO, and I took 2 weeks off for Bali. So that was probably my longest trip that I've taken. Um,
So that okay. So Bali was the one that you kind of got to. Did it make a huge difference having to work through it, or were you still like able to kind of fully enjoy the experience, like having to kind of work through the day and then enjoy it at night?
I would say it was definitely a different experience. I never really had the opportunity to have a job where I could work remotely.
Yeah.
So it was different. It was nice to have my days. So I would work when I was in Europe until probably, or no, I would have my day until 2 or 3 p.m. and then I would start work around like 2:30. I think I would log in, take the morning meetings, and then probably work until like 10 p.m.
Yeah.
So it was definitely an adjustment. But it was kind of funny, like being in Europe, everyone is kind of working. Sorry if you hear the sirens.
Oh, you're good.
It's been a crazy day. There's been a lot of, I think with the weather, it's been a lot of noise outside.
Yeah. Lots going on in Philly.
Yeah, but I think with like being in Europe, I think a lot of people are working remotely and kind of working all around the world since that's a very popular thing right now. So it was kind of funny being at like a cafe, having a glass of wine while on like a Zoom call, and like other people are doing the same. So at like 9 o'clock at night. So that was definitely interesting.
Would you do that again, or would you like? Was it kind of make or break? Like, oh, next time I'll just make sure I kind of have the full time, or what? Like in the future, you do it again?
Yeah, I think I'd prefer to have the time off, but with my current job, especially, like I don't have as much PTO, and I can't really work remotely. So I think at least for the foreseeable future, if I'm traveling, it'll be on PTO.
Nice, nice.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think like there's something to that too, where at least what I've tried to do I haven't really gone anywhere fun lately, but it's like I'll try my best to just put the laptop down, and
Mhm.
I feel like those are the best vacations when you really just, it's as hard as it is, just kind of like really, unwind and
Mhm.
take your face away from the screen as much as possible. I think that's the best way to have a good vacation. So out of the places you've been this year, since we're at the kind of crazy to believe we're kind of at the end of the year, it's like the holiday
Mhm.
episode, guys. We're a couple days
Yeah.
away from the new year. So give us the if you can, which is probably hard. Like, do you have a top, let's say, two or three out of the places that you've been this year? I know you said Bali was somewhere that
Mhm.
you definitely got to get back to, and
Yeah.
you've made friends like all these places. So like, the cool thing about Sarah too, she has so many friends. She can just call somebody up across the world and be like, "Hey, can I get over here?" So
Yeah. And I actually just remembered because I went to Greece as well. That was so I'll tell you my top 3, but
let's
you
get the
mentioned
top
friends
three.
all over, and I'm like, yeah, I actually do have a friend I need to call who I met in Greece. They live in Jersey. I'm seeing them soon, so
That's awesome.
excited for that. I would say my top 3, Bali is definitely up there. Greece, just because Greece was beautiful. What else? And then international, I loved London. I don't know, it is hard.
It's hard because you have to cut something out. That's always the
Yeah,
hardest about
I
the
know.
rankings.
And I wanna say Barcelona, but I loved Barcelona when I was there, but then my friend had her phone stolen, and that was, like, a whole big thing, so that kind of put a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. I don't
Yeah,
know, I'm gonna say Bali, Greece, and Portugal will be my top 3.
there you go.
Yeah.
And so Bali was the one, obviously, could put the laptop away and really hang. Like, was the
Mhm.
weather really warm the whole time, or did you go like kind of all over the place where the climate was different, or was it just like really warm?
So I would say it was perfect weather, but that's because I did my research.
Oh,
So April is actually the best time to go to
okay.
Bali. It's like in between the wet and the dry season. So
There you
it's like
go.
perfect temperature, like not too hot, not super, super rainy. So
And
if you
was it busier because of that, or did you not even notice the crowds too much?
um I think it's crowded just because it's certain areas are crowded, but I think
Yeah,
that's just because it was kind of like a popular destination this year. So I don't know. I think all of like the big cities are kind of getting a little bit busy.
yeah.
So I don't think it was like any different than any other place.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna put you on the spot again because it's always tough doing the list, but maybe your top two, or just maybe your craziest moment. You already mentioned that your friend got something stolen. Like, you've had some. That's the cool thing about traveling. You just get these
Mhm.
crazy stories. So let's hear the craziest. I, of course, have heard some of these already, but the
Yeah.
audience, I'm sure, would love to know. So, any close calls out there? Anything crazy going on this year? Because Sarah had some of the craziest things of probably anybody I know happen to her this year. But
I'm trying to think of like something that's not super, super crazy to start with, but I feel like I just have to tell my scooter accident story.
yep, that's the one I
So
was thinking of. But I wanted to see if that was
there's
the one you
definitely
wanted.
others. There's definitely other
Yeah,
stories, but this is the one that's probably the most memorable this past year.
crazy.
So I'll try to make it quick, but basically, in Bali, on the main island, it's like transportation's great. You can kind of they call it Gojek or Grab. It's kind of like a scooter. It's kind of like Uber, but like on scooters, so you can kind of get around faster. It's more fun, honestly. So we were doing that for most of the trip, and then we were going to the islands. So I think we spent a week and a half, like on the main island, kind of just like all around, just like going different places. And then we went to the islands. So the day we get to the island, I knew ahead of time that we had to rent a scooter. Um, and I figured it would be easy. We'll just get there. We'll figure out the scooter. Like there's scooter rental places like all over. So I was like, we'll just get there, get one. But we had our luggage. So I'm like, let's just call. Like there's like taxis driving around. So I'm like, let's just get like a guy to take us to the hotel, and then we'll figure out the scooter situation. So we go to the hotel. We actually get to the hotel, and their guy's like, "Oh, I'm sold out." And I'm like, "Oh, what do you mean you're sold out? We like already paid everything." He was like, "Oh, I'll just take you down to like my friend's hotel. You'll just stay there." So
Okay.
that was like a whole. I don't even think I told you this part, but we ended
Yeah.
up going. He drove us down to a different hotel that we weren't originally supposed to stay at. And we like get all settled in, and I'm like kind of like a little disappointed. I'm like, these we were supposed to stay. Like I was super excited about this other spot that we were supposed to stay at.
Mhm.
But I was like looking at like there's like no one else there, which was kind of weird. I'm like looking at the reviews. And then I noticed that like the price was like half the price that we originally paid. So it was like much, much cheaper than what we paid for. So like I had to like bargain with the guy. I'm like, listen, like we're supposed to stay here. We're here now. Like you need to give us some money back. So that was like a whole nother thing that happened. But then we like get all that settled, and I'm like, hey, like we're looking for scooter for the next couple days. He's like, oh, I can give you mine. So we paid the guy in cash, like paid him for a scooter for a couple days. So
Yeah.
everything's super cheap there. So it like wasn't like a huge expense. It
Okay.
was like maybe $2 a day. We were gonna get it for like 3 days.
Oh, wow,
Um,
okay.
yeah, it was very, very cheap. So we get this guy's scooter. We're kind of like, I forget, when we were on the main island, we actually met a group from London. We met a solo traveler from California. So we kind of were like hanging out with them on the main island, and
Yeah.
neither of them really had plans. So they kind of were just like, oh, we'll just, follow you and my friend Renee, who was with me. Like, well, we'll just follow you guys. We'll go to the islands too. So we all ended up being on the islands. Well, we're going to like plan to meet up for dinner. The two guys that we met from London didn't end up coming to dinner. It was just us and the girl from California. So we all go out. We take the scooter. We drive to this little like beachfront restaurant. We're hanging out. We get apps. And it was like kind of later in the day. Like things kind of close early, like around like 8 or 9. So we probably went at like 6, got dinner. Had a couple, like I knew I was driving the scooter because my friend isn't super comfortable on scooters. She kind of has like a bad past experience. So like I knew I wasn't gonna drink a lot. I was gonna kind of like keep it tame. Like we go into the night, we end up meeting people out, and we're like talking, like, oh, why don't we go to this place down the street? So we go. We're kind of like at this point like bar hopping, and we ended up like anytime I drank anything there, it was like very like wouldn't get me drunk. Like it was kind of like water almost. This one guy we met, he got this bottle of like almost like moonshine. So it's like Bali moonshine. I had like maybe a couple shots of it. Was probably drank more than I should have. At this point, fast forward, it's probably like 1 a.m. Big jump, but it's 1 a.m. We're like, all right, let's call it a night. Like, let's go back. Only a couple things were open. There's like maybe 2 bars like on the one strip of the island that were open. So we're driving back. It's me on my scooter with my friend on the back, and then the guy we met from Spain. My friend jumped on his scooter. He was going to take her back to her hotel. So we follow them. We take her back, and then we're driving along back to our place. And we're driving, and like I thought I was fine, but it's like 1 a.m. in Bali, like on this like crazy road. There's
And there's
potholes
not
everywhere.
much light, right? Like, can you
There's
see?
no light. No, no light. The roads are windy.
Do you have like does the scooter have a little bit of a headlight, like a
Oh, there's
lamp?
a little, yeah, like a little headlight. Yeah.
Oh, that's it though.
But it's the roads, and it's like unfamiliar territory. Like I don't know where I am.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm picturing just like pitch black.
Yep. So we're going around this loop, and all of a sudden, like there's a pothole or something. All of a sudden, like we go flying off the scooter, we crash.
Oh my god.
I'm like, oh no.
How many miles per hour are we talking?
I was probably going like 40, like not
40? I was gonna say
45.
much low. I thought it was like a windy, like so it's what you're like kind of flying. I don't to me that's like flying. To me, I'm like 40 and ended up with less. Like what did you
Maybe
have? Like
not
a
40,
couple
maybe like
scratches. You'll talk
30.
about
I
your
don't
knee,
know.
but
I wasn't paying it. It's funny because JD asked me
I don't
this, and
know
I'm like,
enough.
I don't
I don't know
know.
enough. 40 feels like flying on a scooter. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just
Maybe I don't. I'm thinking like of a car. I don't know. I don't know
I
what the
don't know.
miles.
I know
But
I can't run that fast. 40
all
miles.
I know is I crashed, and I was like, at this point, I get up. I'm like, knew I was like hurt, but I was like kind of pacing back and forth, like, oh, what did I just do?
Your adrenaline's probably just going
I
crazy.
was, yeah, it was, and I look over, and the guy who spoke fluent, he didn't speak English, he spoke Spanish. He threw his bike to check on us because he was like right behind us and saw us crash.
Mhm.
So I'm like, check on Renee, my friend. I'm like, check on Renee. So I'm like kind of pacing back and forth. And then I look down, and I like realized that like my like elbow was like almost like hanging out. Like it was like, I was like, oh, this is,
Oh.
I'm like, this is like much worse than I like really anticipated it being.
Mhm.
Um, so I kind of looked down and I actually have like you can kind of see it, a
Oh, yeah, you can
scar.
kinda see it.
It was bad.
It was
So
very bad. I saw it, like,
yeah,
within a couple
yeah.
weeks of it, and it was oof.
So we're on the side of the road and I'm kind of like, oh, what do we do? And nothing's really open, but there's like restaurants along the water right there. So I kind of walk into, I like made sure Renee was okay. The other guy was fine. But I walk into this restaurant. I don't know, like it was closed, but I walk around the back and I go in through the kitchen in this door. And I have my phone. I have like my like flashlight on my phone. So I'm like kind of looking and there's this guy just sleeping on a kitchen, like on a bench in the kitchen. So I'm like, I'm sorry. Like I woke him up. I'm like, have my flashlight. Like I'm showing him my elbow.
The waking up is so good.
I'm like, sir.
Sorry, sir.
I'm like, I need help. And
Oh.
he like jumps up. Like he like obviously was scared. He's like, what is going on? He jumps up. He
Oh,
like
man.
he like runs away. So I'm like waiting out front for him.
He thought you were, like, because he's just, like, in a frantic, like
He like I think he said there's like a language barrier, but like I knew he wasn't just like getting up and like running. Like he like I knew he was kind of like gonna go get help.
running
In
to
a
get
sense.
okay, it didn't look like he was, like, afraid of you or something.
No, no, he was just like startled and was like, I'll be right back, I guess.
Gotcha.
So I'm kind of like waiting there. He comes back with like an aloe plant, like this big, a huge aloe plant. And I'm like, no, no, no. Like I need like a hospital. Like I need to like go to the emergency room. So he runs away again. He comes back with like his friend is on a scooter. And I just remember like it also there's also so much happening. So my friend or like the Spanish guy threw his scooter stopped working. Like it wouldn't turn on. My scooter was fine, but like a little banged up, but it was like able to run. Like we like just made sure it was like turning on okay.
Okay.
So he's there, my friend Renee's there. This guy comes on a scooter and I'm like, oh, and also my phone's gonna die. My friend's phone's gonna die.
Oh,
We're like, where you
that's
are,
some of
we're
the
like,
worst anxiety right there, when you know
yeah,
your
like had
phone's
no
gonna die.
service. So I couldn't call anybody. Like it was,
Oh.
but I'm like, I guess I'm gonna go with this guy on the scooter. And my friend Renee was like, don't worry, like I'll figure it out. I'll get in touch with our guy friends that we met from London. Like they were on the
Mhm,
island.
mhm, mhm.
She's like, don't worry about me. Like if anything, I'll be here when you get back. So I'm like, okay. So and luckily I had like a portable charger with me. I think I brought like my charging like cord. So I was like, all right, like so I go with this guy. He's like, we're driving. He's like, you woke me up. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that I crashed. Like, so he drives me. We go to this hospital. It's probably like 15-minute drive. We get there and like you can tell it's a hospital, but there's really no lights on or anything. And he's like, yeah, they're closed. And I was like, oh no, they're not closed. I'm like, no, no, no. So
You saw some light that didn't even exist, you're like, "No, I
there's
see
no
one."
light. I was like, no, no, no. Like, so we go up to the door. He parks his scooter. We go up to the door. I'm like, we're knocking on the door. Nothing. I go around the side of the building. I'm like knocking on windows. Like,
And it looks closed, or, like, you're like, "I know there's someone in there."
oh, I had no idea. I was just determined. I was
Yeah,
like,
you're like, "I'm gonna
I'm
no
getting
matter what."
stitches today. That's what's happening. Yeah, because there was like, I don't know what I would have done if I don't know. So I knock on the windows and eventually like this doctor comes out of like the front door. He's like rubbing his eyes and like turns on the lights and like so I was the only person, the only patient there. They put me on a bed, but it's funny, like me as an American, I walk in and I'm like, excuse me, like what's your Wi-Fi password? I'm like, can you charge my phone? Just so
Wait, before you said anything else, that was the first thing you said?
yeah. Well, I was like, oh, like I got in an
Oh, okay,
accident.
okay,
Like,
okay. I
but
was
then
like,
like
you didn't
as
even
he like
show him the elbows, like, "What's the Wi-Fi?" "Oh, and my arm."
yeah, so he like is like I show him, he's like, okay. And then I'm like, oh, but I also like I need to get service so I can call my
Yeah.
friend. What's your like so that was all happening, but I was definitely like judged. Like they were like, were you drinking? And I was like, they were like, you were partying, and I was like,
Oh, they thought you were, like, a party person.
yeah, because it was at this point it was almost two in
Late.
the morning,
It was late.
and I got in a scooter at like
Yeah, they're like
I'm sure they get this every now and then where it's. stupid Americans or foreigners that come and drink late and crash.
Yep.
So, but yeah, so that happened, and then pretty much, so we were on the islands for another week, and at this point, it was our first day on the island. I
And
got
they
stitches.
stitched you up, right?
He
They
stitched
stitched
me
you up.
up.
So you're
Hmm.
like, at this point, how hobbled are you? Like, was it very hard to, like, you're super sore and just like, oh my gosh, like what? Like, did it feel like you
Honestly,
got run over type of thing? Like, because you didn't
it
get
was.
run over, but you fell over.
I didn't get run over. It felt like I was hit by a bus.
Jeez.
Because I kind of went flying off the scooter. Like I did
Yeah.
hit pavement pretty hard.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I was a little banged up. But like the saddest part for me was we were on the islands. We had
Mm.
plans to go scuba diving, doing surf lessons. Like
Mm.
there's a lot of hiking that we were gonna do. Um, and so I got 10 stitches, and they were like, you can't get it wet. You have to like clean it every day. It was like, so I was mostly sad because I'm like, I don't even want to be on the islands anymore. We spent like one more day there, like the next day.
Mhm.
Because then there's the part of the story where we take the scooter back. Well, actually, this is such a long story.
This is like we
It
could
was
have a whole podcast episode about this story.
a
It
good
probably
story.
it deserves its own episode.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I'll finish. So basically, like I'm wrapping up at the hospital, and I'm like, I go to pay. I have like my
Yeah.
card on me, and they're like, oh no, cash only. I'm like, I don't have like all this like.
Just yeah, and you don't wanna bring too much cash because you get robbed.
Yeah, yes. Like it's Rupa. So I was like, I need to like go to an ATM. So they
Mhm, mhm.
took my ID. They kept it there with them. And then the guy who drove me there, he was so sweet. He was like holding my hand. I was like crying. I was getting my
Oh,
stitches.
I bet, yeah, it's
He like
painful.
he numbed me, but I didn't like I felt every stitch. It was
Yeah,
pretty brutal.
that's awful.
But this guy's like holding my hand, and he's like, "Oh," I told him, I'm like, "I think my friend's gonna come get me." So
Okay.
at this point, I'm laying there and I'm messaging. My friend Renee's phone had died, but our friend Lewis, who is from London, um, who we met on this trip, he was messaging me on Instagram. He was like, "Hey, I picked up Renee. We're coming to find you. Like, we're gonna come find you." So I'm like, "Okay, perfect." So I was told the guy, I'm like, "I think my friends are coming. Like, I'm not sure." They're on their way. So like I'm wrapping up and I'm messaging them like, "Hey, where are you?" And they're like, "We went to 3 different hospitals with." They're like, "These people probably think you're dead. Like we went to 3 different hospitals with a photo of you.
Holy
Have
moly.
you seen this girl?"
Oh
They're
my
like, "And we
god.
don't know where you are." So I didn't
That
know where
would've
I was.
made me so anxious too, like,
Yeah.
they probably never forget
My
that, like, we'll never forget that moment.
Yeah,
That's
Renee was like sobbing. She was like, he took her." Like they had no idea where I was. So
oh
I'm like,
my
"All right, I'm
god.
wrapping up."
I
Yeah,
would
so I'm
be
like,
oh.
yeah, so I'm like, "I'm wrapping up at the hospital, like, meet me back at, like, the crash site." Like, I was like, "Meet me back, like, here."
Oh.
So also meanwhile, while this is all happening, so Lewis came and picked up Renee. While she was waiting for Lewis, on the side of the road, the guy who's from Spain, his scooter broke, and I told him right before I left, I was like, "If your scooter's broken, take my scooter." Like, probably not the smartest thing, but, like, I had him on Instagram, we were hanging out all night, like, I was like, "Take our scooter, I'm gonna
Mhm,
call you
mhm.
at 7 AM to get it back from you, like, this is
Okay.
where I'm staying, I need you to bring it back to me." So, he's like, "No." So Renee's waiting there, she's like, "Take the scooter, we'll get it back." He's like, "No, no, no." So he walks away with his scooter, like, pushing his scooter that wasn't turning on. So she's standing there waiting for Lewis. Lewis arrives and they're standing there and they're trying to figure out where I am. And all of a sudden, Renee told me, she's like, "We hear this like running, like this like sound." She's like, and we look and this in the distance, he's running towards us, no scooter. He's like, help me. I don't know where I am. Like, I need to borrow your scooter."
Oh
So
my god.
he ends up taking our scooter. So there's that. So we meet back at the crash site, or I'm standing there, the guy took me back. I'm waiting for them. I call them. I'm like, "Hey, I'm here. Where are you?" And they message back and they're like, "Ran out of gas." At this point, it's 3 a.m. They're like, "Ran out of gas. Be there soon." Like, oh my God. So the guy leaves me. I'm kind of sitting there waiting for them on the side of the road. And they finally like show up. They're on the scooter. And I think the most terrifying part of all of this was having to get back on the scooter as like 3 of us. And they're like small scooters, they're not like big.
Yeah, I'm picturing like a really like even
Yeah,
getting one person on is probably
and
a lot.
Lewis is a big guy, like, he's, like, probably, like, 6'5", and I don't know. So it's him driving, Renee's, like, and then I get on the scooter, and he took us back home. But I'm like later we get back, and I'm like, "So what happened? Like, you guys ran out," and they're like, "Oh, yeah, we found, like, a 6-year-old, like, in a yard, like, selling gas." And I'm like, "What? At 3 in the morning? Like, where are we?" Just, like, ridiculous, I don't know. And then there's another story that, like, Renee was, like, sitting on the waiting for him to get gas, and, she's sitting there, like, by herself, like, it's, like, scratched up, has a little bit of blood. She said these dogs, so there's, like, this thing about, like, the Bali dogs, they all live outside, like, every family has dogs, but they all live
Mm,
outside, and they're kind
mm,
of like the protectors of the house.
mm.
So, and they're all like, every dog that we came across was like so sweet, so nice, like
Okay.
one's pets and like very friendly. Renee said she's sitting on the side of the road and all of a sudden she sees these eyes. And then she sees like multiple eyes. And then she's like, there all of a sudden there's like 5 dogs like coming towards me and like very like scared, like kind of like creeping towards her, like didn't look friendly. And they started like growling. And so she said she just started crying because she was so scared that the dogs were about to attack her.
Yeah.
She was like, it was one of the scariest moments. She was like, and I just started crying. And one of the smaller dogs like came up and like she like showed it her wound. And she said the dog started like licking her, and then they all kind of came over and were like, okay, she's cool. Like we
Oh
won't.
my goodness. Yeah, that's
So this is
terrifying.
all happening while I'm getting stitched up in the hospital. But
Wow.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. And it's amazing too that you still have Bali on your list of as your that was your number one, right? Of all the places
Yeah,
you've been
because
after all
so no
this.
matter like in any situation, like even this situation, like everyone is so friendly, like so nice. Even though there is like a communication barrier sometimes, a lot of them
Mhm,
do know English, like so they can understand you,
mhm.
like they know what you're talking about, they can help you with directions. So I never felt, I know this is a crazy story, but I never felt unsafe when I was
Yeah.
there. Um, and I think like everything is just so cheap. Like the food's amazing. Um, like it's just beautiful. And I think like the main, like I was just so excited for like scuba diving and, um, like learning to surf is a huge thing over there as well. So I think I'm like so bummed that I didn't get to experience that. That's why I'm like, I need to go back
Oh yeah,
because
you'll have to. And it sounds very like neighborly, almost like kind of reminds me a little bit of like down south where everybody's just like hospitable. Like I mean the US
mhm.
obviously you would never see anybody like wake up like I can't even imagine something like that in the middle of the night in the US. They might think that you're like
Oh yeah,
they're robbed, like you just walk into somebody's house in the middle of the night. That you're asking for trouble.
I
Uh,
know. Yeah.
so that is just an insane story. We're obviously very happy that you made
Mhm.
it out with minimal damage, just stitches. At this,
I
you
know.
probably look back at that and you're like, oh, stitches is nothing compared to
Yeah. I look back and I'm so grateful. It could have been so much worse. So
it could have been really
very
bad. So it's good that you made it back in one
yeah.
piece and okay. And
Yep.
it's hilarious too that that's still like that tells you guys how much Bali is awesome if you can go through that and still think it's the
Mhm.
number one at all. And out of what 10 to 12 or 15 places
A
that you've
lot of
been,
places. Yeah.
you can't even keep count. It's so many, but
Mhm. And I
oh
will
my
say, like,
goodness.
a lot of people are afraid to kind of travel that far, or like
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh, well, the flight's like $1,000." Like, yes, it is, but
Hmm.
when you're there and like you're spending $5 a day, like US dollars a day, like it's on food, on like activities, like it's just so cheap over there. So it's like, and you don't even have like, you could really just go over there and spend money on food and drinks and like
Hmm.
not do crazy excursions, but like even the excursions are like, I don't know, $10 to $20 like US dollars, whereas like even here it'd be like 100, $150 to like
Yeah.
do these experiences. So
Yeah. And I,
to me,
I think like
it's so
we're
worth
the
it.
same in that way where if you like if you're spending your money on something, why not make it an experience or a moment or
Mhm.
something like you look back on
Yeah.
that and you're like, "Oh man, this is something not only is it some crazy memories, but it's like just
Mhm.
in general memories that you're never going to forget and a lot of really happy positive things that come from
Yeah.
it." So, like there is that monetary thing to it, but it's also
Mhm.
like gonna really make you happy and give you these awesome moments that you get to look back on forever. So I think, anybody out there who's like, should I go on this trip in 2024? I think Sarah would say, do the trip. Is there any next one that you have? Like, I think I might have already asked you this, but is there any next one that you have? Like, I think it's tell the listeners because I think you told me before.
Yeah, yeah. So this upcoming year, I do have a couple. I'm kind of in that phase where like a lot of my friends are getting married. So I have a
Yeah.
couple bachelorette parties.
Yep.
So a couple small ones. So I'm going to like Charleston, or no, I think they changed it from Charleston to Miami. So I think we're
Nice. Okay.
going to Florida for that, and then I'm going to Cuba, which will be a fun one, fun but interesting. So looking forward to that in March, and then really nothing. Oh, I guess I have like I'm going to Mexico for an all inclusive for another bachelorette. And then so nothing else really on the horizon. But I am like I'll say my next 3 big trips are going to be Cape Town, South
Okay.
Africa.
There we go.
Um, I want to do Iceland, and then I also want to do Japan. So those are my
Wow.
3 like next big trips.
That's
Yeah.
unbelievable. You'll never run out of places,
When
but
will
you
happen, I'm
will
not
make
sure. I'll probably do more research. Like I think South Africa, I think is like January, like December, January would be a good time. So that might be like this time next year I'll do that. Um, so yeah, we'll see.
there you
But
go, and I was just gonna say, like, you never run out of places to go, but you're the one person I know who actually might run out of place. You might hit every place in the entire globe at a certain
that's
point.
my goal. I think I'm currently at, I want to say 18 countries.
Yeah. Is there anywhere you're like, "I wouldn't go," or you're like, "Send me anywhere?" You could do, like, a show at some point where you're just, like, a travel person. You get to that's a cool job, my goodness, what a dream job right there. You just get to
Yeah,
travel and talk about something.
you
Be
know.
so much fun.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think the only places I wouldn't want to go is anywhere where there's like political, like
Yeah.
anything like crazy in the world happening. Like I'll stay far away from that. Um,
Mhm.
but like Israel is some place that I've thought about going, but obviously like avoiding it for
Yeah.
foreseeable future.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that there's anywhere I wouldn't really want to travel.
Was there anywhere where the language barrier was, like, so tough that it really made it difficult to get around, or have you found that kinda everybody understands English to some extent?
To some extent, I will say, even though Portugal was one of my top places this past year, I think just because for many reasons, like the food was amazing, just like
Mhm.
it reminded me of kind of like a European San Francisco, whereas like the hills and like the roads are just like straight verticals. Like you could like go
Mhm.
around a corner and you're like, oh, I'm like going down this mountain. Like, I don't know, something about it was just like, it felt like I was like constantly like in a maze where like every street was just like so different.
Yeah.
Um, and then like the wildlife, like I saw like dolphins like up close and personal. So that was amazing. But I will say in Portugal, I didn't know what languages people were speaking. And there were a lot of bars where you could tell they only wanted like locals because there'd be like no credit cards, like cash only.
Mhm.
And like we didn't really take out cash because we're only there for a couple days. So like,
Yeah.
and then I think there's like a lot of German, like I don't know. I can understand Spanish. So that's like one language that I'm like when we were in Barcelona, like I was speaking Spanish to people there. But in Portugal, I'm like, I don't know what language people are speaking around me. So I like to eavesdrop on conversations. And that was one place where I'm like, I feel like I can't listen to like what these people are saying.
No,
Um,
no, and for the record, you just speak English, right? And no other
I just speak English, but I'm actually like one of my biggest goals in 2024 is to be fluent again in Spanish. So
Wow.
yeah, so I studied Spanish in high school and then I minored in it in college, actually. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, no, I didn't know
Yeah, I
that.
had my Spanish minor at Westchester. And
Nice.
then, so I spoke it a lot in high school and during college because I was working in restaurants. So I was constantly like communicating with the guys in the back. But when you don't practice something, you lose it. So over the years, I'm in catering now, and the people I work with in catering don't speak Spanish. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like, although I have no excuse because my best friend is from the Dominican Republic and speaks Spanish fluently. So
Yeah,
I
and
will say
you'll
that's
pick
one
it
of my,
right back up. I feel like you'll
yeah.
pick it right back up if
Mhm.
you went to the level of doing a minor in college, like, you probably had to speak really fluently at one point, right?
Yeah, and I'm like flat. I'm on my second week of Duolingo, which is a
Okay.
great app for anyone who is interested in learning language because it's free. And
Nice.
they keep you accountable. Like each day, like I get reminder, like I'm getting a reminder right now that like I need to complete my 20 minutes a day.
There you
Um,
go. And so do you feel like it's actually working? Like it's
oh, definitely. I
that's
think
so
I've
cool.
had a little bit of a advantage because I have an experience from speaking it in the past. So I'm kind of like jumping ahead of the lessons, but it's definitely helpful.
Yeah, and, like, was there any country that you walked around and people were like, "Oh, this American," like, was there any of that type of vibe anywhere, or did you kinda strategically choose places that weren't gonna be like, "Oh, it's an American type of
So
situation"?
France is the only place that I've
Oh, really?
been.
It is I was gonna ask you about France in particular, so they
Yeah,
really weren't
yeah. The French just I don't know. I'm sure there's reason, like, but the French, to my knowledge, just don't like Americans, and if you
Yeah.
they're kind of like, oh, like they think we're, and there's a lot of countries like even like in Greece where they're like, slow down, like you guys, like you Americans are like too quick, like you're too fast, you're talking too fast, you're
Huh.
walking too fast. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of countries, like especially like islands, where they're like, relax, it's fine. So I think when I do travel, that's like part of my favorite part is kind of like embracing myself in the culture and like,
Mhm.
okay, like I can walk at like zero point 0.2 miles an hour. Like I don't need to speed walk down the street. Like I can like take it in and kind of like move slower,
Yep.
which is nice.
Yep, that's almost what it feels like when you go from a city to, like, a country, setting where
Mhm.
it's just like the city any big city, it just moves so
Yeah.
fast, and then, like, you notice the difference between a New York versus, somewhere down south with, like, farmland or something like that. It's just totally different where
Mhm.
people move slower, and culturally, I feel like America is always one of the ones that's like, even just something as simple as talking too fast, I'll catch myself doing that
So
so
yeah.
much, like, because and that's the worst part about doing this podcast is, like,
Mhm.
listening back sometimes, I'm like, "Why am I talking that fast?" And nobody's
Mhm.
understanding
Yeah.
anybody, but, like, you're communicating, and especially with someone like you that I know well, you just
Mhm.
we talk fast. It's like, you don't even
Yeah.
think about it, but slowing down is so important. So, I
Mhm.
mean, slowing down, it's a good transition actually into meditation and just sort of like to talk about that side of your life, Sarah, because you're one of the people I think that has taught me that just like even like taking deep breaths, like there's a bunch of apps that you can use, but just like taking time to really focus on um, your breathing and just slowing down in general is so important. And I think like we're saying, people move so fast, and if you don't take that
Mhm.
time, it makes a dramatic effect on your life, which, I'll notice that the hard way where I'm like, oh man, I
Mhm.
really haven't been taking enough time to just relax. It's too much screen time, it's too much work, it's too much whatever it is. But like recently, I was just going to tell you, I've been bad. I got to get back on the apps. I got to do something because I just haven't, put the time aside. I think that's the hardest part for people, right? Is getting over that thing.
Yeah.
Like, here, I need to dedicate this amount of time. But I think you've always encouraged me. You could be quick, right? So just get into that, get into kind of how it helps you, and sort of what you're doing today to kind of keep yourself centered and all the rest of it.
Yeah, definitely. So I will say I started my like I will say like my meditation, like my spiritual, I guess I'll call it journey, in 2020.
Okay.
So I
Right
was
as
not,
the pandemic started, before or
yeah,
after? Right
it
after?
was I think it was like a little bit right before, like a
Oh, right
little
before.
bit,
Okay. So
I
you
think.
you just mentally knew something was coming. You're like, I need to
I think
prepare.
so. I have to like go back to my first like when I first started journaling, like it was a date in 2020.
Okay.
So it might have been like right after the pandemic
Yeah, it
where I
could have
was
been.
kinda like, okay, now I have the like maybe now I have
Yeah.
the time. I don't know.
I think that's when I started meditating.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think in general, like I never considered myself like an anxious person or like somebody who had anxiety.
Yeah.
And then I started noticing it like over I'm like, okay, like what is this feeling? Like why do I feel this way? And then so my friend Renee actually kind of is the one who got me into it. So she was like, "Oh, like I'll send you this meditation that I did." And it was like meditation was like a new thing to me. Like I had never really done it before.
Mhm.
Um, so I think like her sending me like that first one, I think it was like on YouTube. I was like, "Oh, this is like kind of cool." Like I think it was like I forget. I think it was like a meditation or a manifestation meditation was the first one she sent me.
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh, this is like," I think it was like 10 minutes. So I sat there, put my headphones on. And it's definitely like weird at first, like to sit there and like be still and
Yep.
like in your thoughts and like try to like focus on your breathing and not like to have your like brain like thinking too much. So it's definitely like strange to get into at first, but I think I decided that I wanted to stick to it. So I was kind of like, all right, I'm going to do this like every morning for 10 minutes. Every morning I would like go find a different one that like kind of called to me on YouTube. Since then I've kind of like, there's different apps that I'll kind of tell you about that I really like to use. But so I just started like 10 minutes a day, and I would listen to the meditation and then I would journal right after, just like whatever was on my mind. Like, even if I would even like repeat some of like the affirmations that they said in the meditation. Um, and I really started, like, it was actually kind of crazy. I think a month into doing it, I started to notice like things that I would write about. And here's the trick, is like you write about it like it's your current, for manifestation at least, like you write about it like it's your current like situation, even if it's like
Mhm.
not, like you could say like I have a big boat, even though you don't
Mhm.
have a boat at
Mhm.
all, which sounds kind of crazy. But like
Yep.
I started writing things that like I wanted in my life. And I started noticing like a month into it that like things were happening in my life that I had journaled about like weeks prior. And it's kind of like like set it and forget it. So like you write
Yeah.
about it and then you put it away and like on to the next day. So you're not like constantly thinking about it throughout the day. Which is really nice to just take that like, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes to yourself each day. Cause I feel like, especially as adults, we're like, okay, we're boom, 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 this, like, especially when you start having kids and a family, like it's hard to spend time with yourself sometimes. So I think like I started noticing things in my life were happening, and um, I was really unhappy at my job at the time. And I was writing like, I'm excited about my new job.
Mhm.
And shortly after I got the job at Phenom. So it was kind of really cool to like see all of this happening in my life. And I really like I tried to stick with it and kind of do it like every day, but that doesn't always happen. So a couple times a week even is like a good start. Um, and yeah, I think it's helped a lot with, I guess my anxiety. Like I wouldn't say I have anxiety, but I do. I feel like everyone has like
Yeah.
it to an extent.
Yeah.
So I think it's really helped me just overall with my mental health, with kind of like my goals in my career and in my personal life. So it's really like, I think, kind of changed my life in a way, to look at like where I was before, it was like COVID time. So things were kind of like crazy. But I remember not being happy with my job, I like
Yep.
wanted to be more creative. So I actually like during that time was like writing about my passion for being creative. And then
Mhm.
like all of a sudden this idea came to me that like, why don't I try this like my own Etsy shop? So I actually started doing like my own resin, like, and that actually became really, really like busy, and keeping like, I hit 500 sales in 1 year. So like it kind of just like took off, and like things in my life were just happening for me, which I kind of, when I look back and like look at like the root of it, really stemmed from meditating and journaling and like really focusing on myself.
Yeah, and I think, like, a lot of it, you were just, like, trying to find your purpose, and, like,
Hmm.
it's cool when you write something down and to see it come to fruition. Like, you're making me almost think of the sports days for me where, like, I would, you know, over the summer, okay, this is like in your head, you set this goal of like, I want our team to be here, or I want, to be able to run this amount of miles this fast. And like just
Hmm.
writing it down or putting it in your head, and then like kind of like a set and forget where it's like you're just pushing towards these goals.
Hmm.
And then you just notice, wait a second, like I'm kind of making this happen for myself. Like this is like really, and I think a lot of it is that focus, that like mental energy you're really
Hmm.
putting towards it. But I
And
think it,
I
yeah,
do
yeah,
think like the power of journaling, like the power of like
Ooh,
writing it down, which I know is like sometimes hard, but like it's like even for me, I'm trying to
yeah,
like get back into it more,
yeah.
because it's easy to fall off. But like when you write things down and then like a month later you look back and you're like, whoa, like I wrote about that a month ago.
Hmm.
Especially like specific goals, like specific numbers, like
Hmm.
if you want, I don't know, like if you want to make $1,000 next week, like write that down and like watch like it come to life. Like it's kind of
Yeah.
just crazy how the universe like really gives you what you want when you're specific about it.
Are you a big pen to paper person, or do you just type it in your notes? Like, or what's your format? Or do you
I
like
like
type it
I
out?
like pen to paper. But sometimes if I'm like on the go or if I'm like in the car or something, like I think of something, like I'll put it in my notes to like write down later. But I
Yeah.
do have kind of like a running notes that I'm just like ideas and like, goals, things that I like have in my head.
Yeah, because you're kind of encouraging me to write it down more because I think I tend to take the lazy route and just kind of type it in my notes. But I find that
Mhm,
I don't go back to those notes on my phone enough. So like I guess
mhm.
I'd still have the same issue with the pen to paper a little bit where I have to remind myself to go back and look at it. But there's something to that actual effort of writing it down, I think too, that
Exactly,
maybe
yeah.
makes your head just sort of like it resonates with you a little bit better. So
There's
would you
definitely
say there's a oh, I was just
benefit.
gonna like, is there a certain amount of time that you do these sort of meditation? Like, is there really no time? Like, is it very dependent on the day? Are you still super routine about it, or does it really just depend?
So recently, like a week ago, I decided so with my new job, it's like I'm leaving the house at 7 a.m. I'm getting home at like 5:30. By the time I leave my house, it's dark. By the time I'm getting home, it's dark. So like I'm really struggling. Like I've kind of been like trying to figure out a way to like have more structure in my day before and after work because
Yep.
I feel like time is just like I wake up, I'm like, all right, I'm walking my dog and getting ready and leaving. So I've set goals for myself, kind of like let me like pull it up so I can like read them off. So I've kind of done like I don't know if you know about like habit stacking.
No.
Um,
Tell me
hold on.
about it.
What is this book I have? It's but it's based around like like what is it?
Habit stacking. I like
I'll
it.
have to like text it to you because I forget the name of
Yeah.
it right now. On my bookshelf somewhere. But it's about like build like how habits like change your life, building habits or something like that. It's called.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do like more habit stacking, which is like, say you brush your teeth and then like, it's like you have these habits. Like, so say I drink a cup of tea and then after tea, I want a cookie. It's like
Hmm.
you do things as like a routine. So
Yeah.
like, it's kind of just like you brush your teeth. Okay. After you brush your teeth, then you take a shower. Like, it's kind of just like the routine. So I've been using the reminders in my phone a lot lately with my new job, especially. And I've done, so you can set like times. So I'm due like tonight, my habits are like read for 30 minutes, Duolingo for 20 minutes. So I'm kind of trying to like set up my days with like a better routine that will like set me up for success like in the new year or in my future.
Yep.
Um, and then I have like on here after I read and Duolingo, make dinner. And then I have 30 minutes set aside for like daily reflection and meditation. Since I don't really have time in the morning, I'm trying to do it after work now. So I mean, it could be 10 minutes if you have 10 minutes, it could be
Hmm.
15 minutes. There's meditations out there that are like 2 to 3 minutes long.
Yeah.
I think as long as any time that you have, at least to start to set aside for yourself is important. So, like, you could start with a 5 minute meditation. And then if you have 5 minutes after that, or even a minute after that, to just like journal and reflect, like, even sharing your gratitudes of the day. Like, what are you grateful for today? Or what are you excited for tomorrow? So it's kind of just like really anything that comes to you, but you could start with just like what you're grateful for, what you're excited about. Um, I think that's a good start at least.
Yeah. And have you been pretty consistent with it? As it like because
I
that's my
started it
hardest part too. I'll start it and
consistency.
then I'll get a couple days in and then it's oh, that's the hardest part.
So I decided I wanted to do this like habit stacking a couple days, like probably less than a week ago, like when I was off for Christmas.
Okay,
So
nice.
on Monday. And then I just set reminders on my phone last night. So I have like they'll go off at certain times, but yesterday was my first day doing it. Or no, I set my reminders last night. So this morning was my first like morning set, and then I have my afternoon set starting at 7:30. So I think the reminders on my phone will help me kind of stay accountable. Like it'll like show up on my phone like a text to like do my Duolingo, even though I'm getting reminders for that already.
Yeah,
um,
no, exactly. So, Sarah, get into your Etsy. You talked about it a little bit. Talk about that side of your life and talk about maybe just the more artistic side, kind of what that does for you mentally. Like, is it more the mental? Is it more the aspirational side of things where you wanted to kind of start your own business and get that entrepreneurial kind of muscle going? Or, tell us just more about that Etsy.
yeah, definitely. So it kind of started as well. I've always like growing up, I was always kind of like creative, always loved painting, drawing, really like whatever I could get my hands on creative wise, like building things I loved. So it's been a while since I kind of got into that.
Yep.
In my previous role in marketing, I was doing a little bit of creative stuff like ads. video production. So that was kind of fueling that creative part of my life. But kind of when like the world shut down and I wasn't doing that much anymore during COVID, I was kind of like, didn't realize that I was missing it as much as I was. So kind of, I think I came across a TikTok and was like, oh, like resin, like what is that? I was like watching them do it. I was like, oh, this is like really cool. I want to try this. So I think like that day, probably because I was being ridiculous on Amazon and just like ordering whatever I wanted at the time. I think I ordered like a resin kit, came in the mail like that week. And I was like, got some molds. And I think the first thing I made were like coasters and keychains. And I was like, this is like, I was realizing like there's so much you can do with resin. So I was like, kind of like, seeing what other people were doing, but I was like, I kind of want to do my own thing with it. So I think like when people look at my work versus like other resin artists, they're like, your stuff is just so like, it's different. Like it's unique, like not what other people have really seen. So anyone who does want to check out my stuff, you can find me on Instagram or
Yep.
Etsy.
I'll tag it in the
Yeah,
tag it in the description, folks.
awesome. Yeah, it's at Shop Sarah Jean Art. So yeah, check it out. But it kind of just like happened as like, this could be a fun hobby. And then I think I gifted like all my friends, family, like coasters, keychains for Christmas in 2020. And then I was or maybe it was 2019. I think I started it. I don't know. The years are always like, can't forget when that was. But my friends were kind of like, this is so good. You should do this. So I was like, you know what, maybe I will. Like took a bunch of pictures of some stuff I did, put it on Etsy. And I remember the day, this was silly of me, the day I launched my Etsy account was the same day I flew to Florida for a week. So, I didn't really know how it worked. I was like, oh, like I'm just gonna like put this out there. We'll see what happens. So I put up my pictures. Like you have to put in like specs of like, they asked you like shipping sizes and like I just filled stuff in. I like wasn't sure. I'm like, we'll just figure that out later. So I fly to Florida and I wake up like the next day and I had 5 orders. And I was like, oh, I'm not ready for this. Like, because I think I had my shipping time like 3 to 4 business days. And I was like, I'm not even home right now.
It's like a good problem to have because you're happy for the orders, but it's like, oh wait, 3 to 4 days. That's
exactly. And it was a made to order situation. So it was like, I was letting them pick what colors they wanted, what's like,
that's not 3 to 4 days.
So I was like, this is gotta rethink this. So it kind of started a little rough, like didn't really know what I was doing, but it really, once I figured it out, it really took off. And like I said, I hit over 500 sales, Etsy sales in less than a year. And then I started getting into the like the craft show like markets, which actually was like I found was like what I really loved. So I really loved like being able to like get out in the community, set up a table, like talk to people about my work. And it's much easier because what I really enjoy making is kind of like bigger, like charcuterie boards, like cutting boards, bigger trays, tables, stuff like that, which is a little trickier to ship. So I found that like having these markets out in the communities, putting my face out there, talking to people, I also offer custom orders. So I've had a lot of people come to me with their wedding flowers and they're like, hey, I want to preserve these. Can you help me? So that's kind of what I've been getting into a little more lately, which has been a lot of fun. But it's kind of turned into a little bit of a side hustle, but definitely like definitely a hobby that's kind of been a part of my life the last couple of years, which has been great.
Yeah, and you make a good point about just like getting out there to those craft fairs and all the rest of it, like where you're kind of in front of people, and there's like something to that too, when you just get to kind of talk about your art, gets you out of the house, it gets you in the community, like you said. Like, is that your favorite part of it, or do you actually get something too out of the actual like is it soothing to make it? Is it like kind of more, oh man, I have to do that again, but this is gonna be fun in the end? Or
so I will say when it started, I was like loving every second of it. I'm like, this is amazing, but it got overwhelming. Like I was working full time. I also do catering on the side. So I was also catering part-time. And then I was also like, this hobby turned into a business. And there are some weeks I had 20 orders that I was working on. So it got to a point, I think there was like a year and a half where I was working like insane hours. Like I was like getting home from or like finishing my day at work and then like I'd have like to make like 6 orders or 7 orders and then like my weekends I'd be catering. And then like it's not just making the orders, like I also do custom carving. So like there were like the final touches that I had to do, like the actual shipping of it. Like I remember one time I was walking to I used to live in media and I would walk to the post office. And I remember the one time I had like 2 full bags and I just had like I think I shipped 35 orders in 1 week.
Whoa.
So
Oh
like
my
at
gosh.
first I was like loving every second of it. And then I was kind of like, okay, I need to slow down, like reel it back, not do as much. And then that's when I really started, instead of doing like the custom orders, I really started like doing what I wanted to do. So I would, buy a bunch of wood at like, I don't know, TJ Maxx or like find
Hmm.
it online. And I would have this wood and then I would do kind of put on music and kind of like, it was like for a while, it was like my Friday nights, like what I looked forward to
Yeah.
on the weekends. Like I would be
Yep.
like blasting music in my room and I would just have all this resin and I would just like pour for like a couple hours and really make pieces that I wanted to make versus like making pieces for what other people wanted, if that makes sense. So like that was,
Totally makes sense.
yeah, so that's when I really started like finding like my passion and my creativity in it again. And then that's where I started selling them at the shows. So like it's more of like my pieces that I really like.
Yeah.
So like it's easier for me to talk about them too, like when I was making them, like what I was feeling. I do a lot of like ocean pieces. So yeah, I don't know. It's that part of it I really do love. And it really like fuels my I guess like my creativity, like
Yeah.
creative side and yeah.
100%. Like, and if the orders ever like you check your Etsy and you had like 400 in a day or something like that, like it was getting no credit. Would
There
that
was a
ever
point
be
it was
something where you
overwhelmed.
think about it and you'd want to take it like full time? So, is it like a dream someday to just do that and kind of
So
relax and
so I did think about that and like kind of like I've seen people do it
yeah,
online that who I like follow and love their work. Um, and it's stressful. I've looked into it. I've looked at studios because I am doing it out of my apartment in media
hmm
and now my apartment in
hmm
Philly. Um, and like I do think it would be awesome, but I'm somebody who one likes to travel a lot. I like my PTO, like getting paid when I'm not working sometimes.
Yep, yep.
I do think, maybe down the road, um, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think keeping it as a hobby for now is kind of more ideal.
Yeah, and it's nice that you're keeping it fun too. You're doing the pieces that you want to do. You're
Mhm.
not, getting
Yeah,
too crazy with it and letting
exactly.
it overwhelm you because I think I struggle with this too. It's just finding because you're doing so much. So
Mhm.
it's like, what do you prioritize? What do you
Yeah.
spend your time on,
Yeah.
right? And there's you see something on TikTok, which in this case is a very cool story because a lot of times
Mhm.
social media, it's like you see something and you're like, there's just so much on there, but like there are some cases in like yours where you can see something cool, really find a cool hobby out of it.
Mhm.
So it's cool that you're able to do that. And I think you mentioned catering too, which is like I can't even the Etsy's actually working full time and doing cake. So it's like
I can't chill.
I don't know how you're doing really anything else, but
Yeah.
talk about the catering a little bit because you're still doing that today, right? And none of these you've really stopped. I would say maybe you spend more time on some versus the others, right? But
Yeah. Yeah, I would say it fluctuates. So catering has actually been really good lately. I've been doing it, I want to say almost 3 years now, 2 to 3 years.
nice.
So I kind of got into it. I was always in the restaurant industry, so I was always working also insane hours. Like when I was working full time, I was also like, oh, I'm going to work part time at Iron Hill. That part time turned into like 4 shifts a week. And I was just like losing my mind. I was like, I
Yeah.
can't do this. So when a friend reached out and was like, hey, my boss, needs somebody this weekend to help like serve, would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So it was one of my friends who reached out. It's actually now like a group of my friends. So I think it's like all of my best friends who I'm working with when I do catering, which is really awesome because I get to see
Yeah.
them and work and make money. And it's always a lot of fun. We always have a good time. But the catering's nice because I can kind of do it whenever I want to do it. Like my boss can send out dates. Hey, I need people these dates this month who can work. We kind of all say if we can or can't. And then it's like I might work 2 times in a month. I might work 7 times in a month, so it's really up to me, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm very grateful that I kind of landed this opportunity because one, it's good money. I have the opportunity to I'm always like thrown into something. So it's either like I'm bartending for the Eagles' wives, say, last week. This
So sick. That's
Yeah,
so sick.
so I'm meeting really cool people. And then sometimes I'm doing like private events where my boss is like, hey, can you cook for 35 people? It's going to be a 6-course dinner. So I'm also getting that, like, I love to cook. So I'm also getting that like culinary experience that like I already know how to cook. It's just like adding to my resume essentially. Like, so it's always different. It's always fun. But yeah, like I said, the last couple of events I've worked, I'm actually working with the Eagles' wives, which is exciting.
Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, you
Yeah.
might have
So
to tell me some of this tea you might have to keep offline. I
yeah.
don't know. I don't know what you want to throw out there on the internet, but I
Yeah.
want all, let's just say I want to know all of
We
it.
won't give all the tea, but I will say, like, I was at Lane Johnson's house,
There we
yeah, like
go.
a month ago, 2 months ago. Most recently, I've been at Jordan and Rick Lovato's house. So I think he's the
Oh, no way. No
um,
way.
I was actually it's actually a funny story. I was at her house for their Christmas party. That party ended up like going viral. I don't know if you saw it was on E News.
No, I didn't see that. I didn't what
It,
happened at the party?
it was just like insane. Like she
Oh,
had
like just
probably like
like a
500 balloons, like
oh my goodness.
balloon towers. I wonder if I could pull up a picture real quick. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the camera, but I'll pull up the E News.
So the actual party, I was thinking there was something that happened at it. It was the actual
Oh
party.
no,
It was
yeah, like
that
the
cool of a
party
party for someone.
itself. Yeah, so it's actually funny, and
That's
of course,
awesome.
E News posts so much. But this photo of all the wives, oh,
Okay.
be like a glare. But it's Kylie Kelsey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she posted this photo. I took the photo, but it's
Photo
like,
creds for
yeah,
Kylie
so
Kelsey. What?
it's viral right now. And Kylie Kelsey actually called me her queen. We were talking for a while.
Okay. This clip that, folks. Whoever's got the I still need to get myself together and get some clips going, but
Yeah,
what a freaking
I
story.
know.
Unbelievable. She's like the most viral person out there right
And
now,
it's funny
calling
because
you the queen.
yeah, I was talking to her for a while because I was bartending for them. And this is the second time I met them. So I was bartending. I'm like, and she comes over, we're talking for a little bit, and she's like, "Oh, I'm kind of the worst. Like, I didn't know who she was."
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, that's like one of the only Eagles wives that I can like put a face to.
yeah, I had no idea. I didn't know who she was. Like, I recognize all their faces from the last party I worked, but I'm kind of just talking to her, and she was like, "All right," like, and then I was like helping them with certain things. And then when I was taking that photo, she was like, "Sarah, you're our queen. Like, what would we do without you?" Like,
Whoa.
just like,
First name
like,
basis? Did you just
yeah,
slip that one in? Not
yeah,
only the first name basis is even more like,
I
whoa,
know.
whoa, whoa.
Yeah. And it was funny, like they had like the mummers come. They had like a couple of the mummers come to the party. They had this
So
like
sick.
gift room that they just had like insane gifts everywhere for everyone. The end of the night, I'm like helping them clean up, and they're like, would you use any of this stuff?" And it's like really nice, like hair products, makeup products. Like, I'm like, "Yeah, I'll take it." So got like a little gift bag of like
Oh
everything.
my
But then it
what?
was just funny, like the days following the party, to see them post it. Like the girls were posting it, like the wives.
Yeah.
But then like to see it on E News, and like there's like another channel that like posted it on Instagram,
Yep,
and it's
yep.
like,
Well, I saw the picture that you're talking about, the Kylie Kelsey. When I saw that, I didn't know you're talking about the same one because you're at so many of
yeah.
these. I'm like, that's
So that
insane.
picture of like all of them, like I took that photo.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah,
Sarah, you're my queen from
I know.
Kylie Kelsey. You got to get that on a T-shirt or something. That's like
That's funny.
unbelievable. So
But
there's
it was
no,
nice. Yeah,
yeah, go
so I
ahead.
was like helping them clean up, and they're like, you'll be here for New Year's, right?" And I was
Whoa.
like, I don't know. And I
Oh,
look at
you
my
got if
boss.
the
I
catering,
look
are they doing it?
I look at my boss, and he was like, "Yeah, you'll be here." And I was like, "Okay, I guess I'll be here." And I was like, "Oh, is it like the same group of everyone?" Because normally it's the wives and the guys are kind of like off doing their thing. This party, just like Rick was there, Rick Lovato. And then the
Mhm.
last party I worked, there were a couple guys like out by the fire, just like hanging out, which I like served them pizza, and they were like, only one slice. Like we don't want pizza. Um,
Oh, that's right. You can't be getting too many slices in
yeah, they're
if
like,
you're an
no.
NFL player.
Yeah, they're on a strict diet. But I was like, oh, is it the same group? And they're like, oh no, like it'll be about like a bunch of the team, like a bunch of the players will be here.
So
So I
you are
am
going.
curious.
Are
Yeah,
you
on New
going?
Year's.
You have to go. I was gonna say if you're not going, you gotta go to that one.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. The
No, I
Eagles.
will be spending my New Year's with the Eagles players and their wives.
Wow, you just dropped the bomb on the podcast there. This is
Yeah,
unbelievable. I'm so jealous. This is
I
you have to
know.
tell me all the stories.
So
So
I
I
don't know
guess
who will be there yet, but we'll see. It should be fun.
and so far, let's just put a hopefully a good name on the Eagles. There hasn't been any like where you've been like, oh man, like no rough people. Like it's been pretty friendly crowd so far, right?
Yeah, everyone that I've worked with and talked to and served has been great. Yeah.
Yep, you hear that, guys? Happy
Mhm.
wives, happy lives. So I
That's
think
that's it.
if the wives of the players are happy, it bodes well for our chances this week against Arizona. Arizona should be easy anyway, but
Yeah, we'll
that's
crush them.
yeah, it's so cool. I can't. Do you get like fanboyish at all? I guess you've met so many people that at this point you have a pretty good face with it where you're probably not too like was there ever anybody that you have seen in these catering ventures yet or even I mean prior to catering you've always bumped into some pretty like have you ever had that moment where you met somebody that was like oh hi I'm Sarah like
Honestly, I'm trying to think.
no starstruck moments
No, no. And I think maybe it's because I'm just like oblivious and I just don't like after the fact, I'm like, oh wait,
yeah that
that
was
was
Kylie Kelsey calling me her
yeah,
queen.
yeah, yeah. I always forget when I was in where was it? The I was in Puerto Rico
Hmm.
and the guy from oh my god, what is the show? It's gonna bother me. It's the sister of 27 Dresses. Not the main girl, but the girl who gets married. Have you seen that movie?
I wouldn't know it now 20 I can't think
Maitland.
I may have seen it but I don't remember 27 dresses.
Okay. And then what Entourage, the short guy in Entourage.
Oh, I'm sure the listeners might know. I didn't know.
I don't
I'm
know.
like the worst with
I'm the worst.
movie show references too because I'll see the face. I'm like, oh, I saw
Kevin
that person.
Connolly. You know who that
Kevin
is?
Connolly.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've heard the name. I'll know the face
Yeah.
too when I see
Or
it.
no. Or is it Eric Murphy? Uh, or Eric
It's one of the
Murphy?
two.
Which one? It says Kevin Connolly and then Eric Murphy right under, so I'm not sure
Oh
which.
yeah, yeah,
But I was in Puerto Rico and we're at a bar and I was actually my friend and I were like, let's make everyone do the limbo. So we like took off our sweatshirt and like we had our sweatshirt in the bar doing the limbo and like everyone's doing it and like we're having a good time. And then like this girl goes under and then this guy goes under and then like the girl comes up, she's like, you're so fun, like let's get a drink. And I'm like, okay. And then like later we're like wrapping up and I go over and I'm like, wait, this is the girl that's like in all these movies. Like, I don't know. That was kind of a moment where I'm like, I just watched 27 Dresses like last month and now you're right in front of me. But of course I didn't know her name. So I'm just like, I know faces. I don't know
yep,
names. I'm bad with
yep.
names.
Oh
Um,
man, that's
yeah.
unbelievable. I've always told you too. I think one of these days it's going to be your face where you're going to become famous for some reason or
I
the
hope
other.
so. I'm
But
ready for it.
you're all aboard. You're like,
Yeah.
sign me up.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, if Kylie Kelsey's calling you a queen, I think we can call you famous
Mhm.
at that point. The way did you? She like
Yeah.
sold the jacket she put out there. Sold to the guy from
Mhm.
Always Sunny. If you saw
Oh,
that,
did it? Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it was like a whole
Yeah.
viral thing. But
I need to watch their documentary because everyone's like,
oh, if you haven't yet,
yeah.
if any of the listeners haven't checked that out, I think I've
Mhm.
probably mentioned it once. But
We've
Kelsey
seen
on
it, yeah.
Amazon Prime, it is
I'm
fantastic
gonna have
and
to
just
watch it.
cool backstory for all those guys. But yeah, anything Eagles, Sarah knows that I'll perk up right away. So
Mhm.
she had that one in the back pocket, a little diamond in the rough there. But
Yeah.
that is so cool. And like it sounds like you're gonna be doing more and more of the Eagles gigs. So maybe like Sixers players next or Flyers or Phillies
Yeah.
or something like that next. And
Yeah.
you'll always have the behind the scenes stories for us here.
I
So
hope so. That's the plan.
I know we'll probably get to some
It's
stuff
my
easily.
boss keeps saying, my catering boss keeps saying, he's like, "Sarah, I'm gonna set you up with one of the players." And I'm like,
Whoa.
we'll see. We'll see if if you're all talk, no action. We'll see what happens. Yeah. if he
Yeah,
actually
there you go.
does it,
And you
you
got to
know?
make sure too that he's got like because everybody knows the players, but
Yeah.
you don't want him to throw you with the wrong one. Some of the I feel like our team though, if you're gonna pick a team, I'm obviously biased. We got some good dudes on the Eagles,
Mhm.
but I think a lot of them are happily married and all the rest of
I
it
think
too.
most of them are, so, yeah,
Yeah, so it's
I
hard,
don't
but
know.
yeah, NFL player, you got to take him up on the first date. You can't say no to that.
We'll see, we'll see.
Oh, look at that. You are
Mm,
famous. Just saying no to an NFL player, just casual. Nah,
yeah,
no.
not into it.
That is what I'm talking about. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's the big protein that they do most of the events, right? For catering purposes. Like, are you no
Mhm.
other crazy famous stories yet with
Not
other teams
not
yet?
with catering. It is fun. We do, we work a lot. He's not famous, but David Dodge, he owns a lot of the Dodge dealerships.
Oh, okay,
It
nice.
was funny. I don't know. I might have told you this one, but this guy was like viral because he fell asleep at he was courtside at a Sixers game.
Oh, I bet
At
if
a
I
big
search
game.
his name, I'll find.
It was like if you look up "man falls asleep Sixers," like
I've seen the clip. Yeah, I know the clip you're
but
talking. That's so
I
funny.
just think it's funny because my roommate was actually working his event that day, and like I think everyone thought he was drunk and like he got kicked out. Like I don't know, it was like this big like thing that was
Mhm,
happening.
mhm.
He got a lot of publicity for it, but I just think it's funny. Like my roommate got a call, like she was like, no, like I promise, like he wasn't drunk, like he was just tired. It was just funny, like I don't know.
Oh
But
my
yeah, with
gosh.
catering, it's kind of more like low key. Like we don't do anyone super famous.
Yeah,
Definitely a lot of rich people. These we go in some pretty cool mansions sometimes.
there you go. And it's nice that you're working with your friends too. You just get to,
Mhm.
which that can be like, I've had bad experiences too, where like I'll do something with my friend and work versus hanging out outside of work is just totally, it's like put the
Yeah,
two together and it doesn't mix. But if you have the right friend, a lot of times like working with your best friend can be like really fun.
exactly. Yeah, we always have a good time.
Yeah, that can be awesome. So yeah, I
Mhm.
guess finish this off with a little bit of talk about just how it's been living in Philly. You were in media for a little bit. I know you're kind of Philly suburbs growing up, if I'm not mistaken. There, what do you like about the city? Is the area in that you're in right now? Is that the one that you permanently want to be in, or are you
Mhm.
kind of feeling like you might be up for a change as far as location in Philly?
Yeah, so I grew up in Coatesville, went to Westchester, so lived in Westchester for four years, and then I lived in media for 4 years during COVID times. And then I was kind of like, I liked media. I liked that I could walk around. Fell in love with Trader Joe's. I liked that vibe where I could just walk out my door and go to like any restaurant I wanted that was like right there. Get my groceries. My bank was right there, so I really liked that aspect of it. But being single in my 20s, I'm like and I was also like, all my friends lived in the city. So I was driving to
Yeah.
the city a couple times a week at least. So I was kind of just like, once I left media, I was like, I'm ready. I'm excited for the city. I'm currently in Fairmount, which I really love. It's, right by the art museum, Fairmount Park, Kelly Drive. I'm right near the Broad Street line, so if I want to shoot down to South Philly, I can just jump on the subway. So I've really, it's been 2 years here, and I've really been loving it. My lease is up in March, so I'm kind of, starting to look at other options. Kind of, I'm really open to anything. So my only criteria is I need a park nearby, and I
Hmm.
need parking, which I know is parking in the city, I think is the biggest struggle for most people. So kind of looking at my options, seeing where my next move is going to be. But I'm looking at Northern Liberties. I looked at a place in East Falls a couple weeks ago. I really liked that, at least for like the parking situation. Um, Nice big studio. So yeah, I'm looking in passing, I think next week. So I'm really open. I'm not sure where I'll end up in March, but excited to kind of see what that looks like for me. And also
Yeah.
living on my own. It'll be my first apartment by myself. So
That's
excited
awesome.
for that. Yeah.
That's
Yep.
a huge step. That's so cool too.
Mhm.
Like I've I don't think it ever happened to me where I was living alone at any point, but I
Okay.
always thought about it, and I was like, "That'd be cool to just kinda, like, have a
Yeah.
studio or something like that," and,
Mhm.
you fully get your own space at that point, so it's like
Yeah.
your own little pad, so that'll be fun.
Mhm.
So has there been anything in Philly that has made you say, "Okay, I'm a city person for life," or is there anything that you're now like, "Okay, 5 years down the line, I'd rather be a suburb person," like, have you fully shifted
Mhm.
into the city girl life, or is it kind of maybe someday down the line you get somewhere else?
I think so, like, looking, like, down the line, like, 5, 10 years from now, I do want, a family, I want kids.
Yeah.
I don't think the city is somewhere I would wanna raise my kids, so I do think eventually and I like nature, like, I like
Yeah.
having my car in my parking lot, not getting bumped into every day,
Yep.
street parking, so, you know, I like the city. I love that there's, so many things to do all the time. But I'm also like, I don't go out all the time. I kind of like, hanging in, watching a movie, doing my resin stuff. I'm catering all the time. So I'm like always doing that. Um, I feel like I'm like always on the go and I'm like not really sure where I'll be next. So I feel like I definitely want to do the city one more year, maybe longer, depending on where I end up. But I feel like I'm more of like a suburbs, like I don't know, maybe like Hollingswood. Like I do like Jersey suburbs, like Hollingswood. Seems like a good area. So
Yeah.
I'm in Delaware a lot for my job now. So like not sure too much, but like Newark, Middletown. Um, I don't know, but that also just like seems a little far. So I don't know. We'll see. I really have no idea where I'll live one day.
Yeah, and, like, you
I
do
thought
so
about
much.
moving to London lately.
I
So
was gonna say, is there any, like, have you been somewhere that was that good that you were like, "I could like, or is it you have to be semi close to, family/Philly slash Philly slash where wherever the home is
mhm.
for the heart?
Yeah. I mean, I have my dog, and I think he's bigger, he has anxiety, so I think, like, traveling with him somewhere far might be a challenge, especially since I have my family right here.
Yeah,
They love to watch him, so that's, like, an always
that
anytime I'm
helps.
going anywhere, it's, like, an easy 45-minute drive, drop him off with my parents. My parents just got a puppy, so my dog's, like, obsessed with the puppy, and they love
Perfect.
each other. So that's a good situation, it's, like, nice to have them close by. I also have, like, 5 nieces and nephews, so I don't get to see them as often as I'd like, but it is nice to have the option, like if they have a game or a cheer competition, to like be able to like shoot down and be there if I have the time, or if I'm free. So I don't think I'll stray too far, even though I do think about London and Barcelona. I'm like I could just live anywhere I wanted if I wanted to, but I,
Yeah.
I think I'll stay. I think I'll stay in the States for a little while. Stay on the
Yep.
East Coast.
Yep, and I think I've always thought about, like, there's definitely some destinations you get in your head, you're like, "Oh, it'd be so nice," and you visit places where you're like, "I could live here,"
Mhm.
but I think being away from, because 'cause I've just been in Philly since I was, like, 2 years old,
Mhm.
around the city for that long, so it's like, it just feels like home. I don't know that anywhere I'd really be able to make anywhere else home,
Yeah.
for per se, so it's interesting too, someone that travels as much as you do,
Mhm.
it's still like everybody at some point you have your kind of your home, what makes you feel like home. So yeah, I could see you kind of being a suburbs lady later in life, so that'd be
Yeah.
cool. But city's the best too. Like there's things I miss about the city. It's you can walk anywhere you want. Like
Mhm.
you have so many restaurants. You're kind of would you call yourself a foodie? Like you hit a bunch of those
Oh,
restaurants.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think honestly for all the places I've been, I think Philly has one of the best food scenes.
Yeah.
There's New York. New York has everything and amazing food. A lot of places have amazing food, but I think Philly has some of the best, if I'm being honest. Um,
Cool.
we have
Uh,
a lot of really good options here.
give us uh, give us your top 2 before we go. Give us your top 2 if you haven't hit them yet, like, where maybe
Mhm.
you can't even get a reservation type spot because you go to those a lot where it's hard to get in.
Yeah, so I will say some of the harder ones to get into, Zahav is incredible. It's
Mhm.
Israeli. Um, Amazing. If you can get in, go. Laser Wolf's another one that's Israeli, like Middle Eastern.
Okay.
That one's really good. Maybe easier to get a reservation, maybe. And then Kalaya, I'm probably saying that wrong. I think it's Kalaya. But that's a Thai, and I love spicy food, and it's kind of newer, like I would say the last 2 years, year and a half. Um, but she actually, the owner actually won a James Beard Award. So she's like rated one of the top restaurants in Philly right now. So
Sick.
I think, especially if you like spicy food and if you like Thai food, it's unbelievable. It's really good. Good cocktails too.
Yeah, I'll have to check them
Mhm.
out, and that's the fun thing about, like, I talk a lot about, how moving to Jersey, everybody makes a huge deal about it in your head, but I'm like weirdly closer to the city now than I was before,
Mhm.
and that's the good part is like I haven't been in these nice spots, but I need to get out there more. But um, it only takes me 30 minutes to get over the bridge, and I can get
That's
to
so nice.
any of
Yeah.
the good food in Philly because it's
Mhm.
always fun to get out there. I actually missed, now that I think about it, I missed all the Christmas stuff this year. First time in a while that I missed the. Did you do any of the Christmas sites in Philly? They have a pretty good Christmas scene.
Yeah, they do. Like the Christmas Village, Christmas market is always a good time. I actually had tickets to go ice skating a couple weeks ago. But it was so cold. I was like, I don't even
Yeah.
really want to be outside. We just ended up like getting dinner. I think actually went to Double Knot, which is another really good one. If you
Okay.
sushi, Japanese. I think yeah. We were gonna go ice skating. I was excited, but I'm like, it's way too cold.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'll have to check out those spots. Appreciate you giving us the recommendations. Well,
Yeah, of
Sarah, I feel
course.
like me and you we could go for hours and
Definitely.
hours and hours. I want to
Mhm.
have you on as a return guest. For sure. I appreciate anybody who has stayed on this long to listen to us. I know we both got busy schedules, busy lives, so it is always hard to chalk out, even if it's a
Mhm.
half hour, it can be hard at times. So we appreciate you hanging on for this long with us. But folks, this has been Sarah, and I'll tag all your stuff in the description too.
Awesome.
But yeah, thanks for anybody who made it this long. Appreciate you guys.
Bye.